The Sales Show, and I am here today not just with panelists Jess and Stephen will be joining us shortly, tech permitting. We also have two special guests today, Pam Case and Jill Chitty, both of whom are LinkedIn experts, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, is how to get clients with LinkedIn. But before that, just in case you don't know any of us, let's do some quick introductions. So Jess, if you would like to go first, please.
Yeah, morning everyone. So my name is Jess. I work with businesses to help them get noticed a bit more and help them know what to do to get noticed. And I do that through making sure they've got a compelling brand that's talking to the right people. You know, that's key. You're talking to the right people, not everyone. So I have a 6-step brand loyalty process that helps me do that with my clients. I have a short video that explains that process. So if you're intrigued, if you're interested in what them steps are, drop me a message or comment underneath the video and I'll send you over a link to see that video.
Fabulous. Thank you, Jessica. Pam, over to you.
Oh, I've been teaching people to get business from LinkedIn for many years now, and I'm also a keynote speaker. And the way I sum up what I do with LinkedIn is I help you to turn your LinkedIn network into your blinking net worth.
Great stuff. Jill, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. And my start on LinkedIn was far from glamorous. I totally failed, got thrown off LinkedIn multiple times, and have gone on to create great results for myself and my business. And we look at how you're presenting yourself on LinkedIn so that you show up differently and clients just come to you because you are standing out and showing differently. I have a LinkedIn League membership. That's a monthly membership where we coach you and train you every week. And I have a Mastering LinkedIn program where we deep dive into all the lovely things LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Thank you. So what I want to talk about now is what are some of the common mistakes that people make on LinkedIn? So Jill, what's the biggest one that you see?
Yeah, I think people think they have created a profile and that's enough. And just having that profile means that they're going to show up and get clients. But actually, that's just the very first step in a long journey of things that you can do on LinkedIn if you want to proactively get leads for the company that you work with or for your own business.
Right. So basically, profile is not enough.
Correct.
Yeah. Fantastic. Pam, what about you? What's one of the biggest mistakes that you see people making?
Can I first of all just agree with Jill on that? Because you hear a lot of people say, oh, pack your profile with keywords so that you can get found in searches. And I'd like to say, when was the last time you used LinkedIn to find a product or service that you want to buy? Nobody does that. They go to Google. Okay. So it's not about that. You have to get out there. But yeah, I think working through a company page. How often do you see a company page updates in your feed? And not very often. And you can't really build relationships with people through a company page. And they don't really travel very far through the feed anyway. Why would LinkedIn do that when they want you to pay to have your company pages promoted? So if you see any, have a look and you'll see the word promoted, it's paid for.
Right. So so just like the ads that we see where it says sponsored content on Facebook, it's the same thing on LinkedIn. Totally. And I think when I do see company updates in my feed, which, you're right, it's like a fraction of the time that I see personal updates, they tend to be pretty dull and not very inspiring.
Sales. I mean, you'll only get to see them if, for instance, somebody else has commented on them in your network, but generally if you're following. So asking people to follow your company page is like saying, please sign up to all my adverts.
Yeah.
Not great.
I mean, I think the one time when, if you've got a team on LinkedIn, though, I think there is an advantage to having a company page because then you can have things, but then like what I have seen is where, a director or somebody in the team for a particular company shares a company update, but they have something personal with it. Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited that we've achieved this, or I loved this day that we, this event that we had, or, so there's something personal, because I think that is the one thing, is that where you've got
It
multiple
doesn't,
members of a
yeah,
team.
it doesn't do any harm,
Mm.
but a shared post very, very rarely will travel very far in the feed anyway. So not that many people will get to see it anyway.
Okay, so what you're saying is, if we have company page, we have updates, and then we share it personally, it's not going to go beyond our first connections. Okay.
I love the way Jill and I are both going.
We're both singing from the same song sheet, obviously, Pam.
Yeah, we do.
Yes. Good to know. So Jill, what's another mistake that you see people making, please?
Definitely. Well, let's continue that theme on the homepage feed, because I think people broadcast information about their business and nobody cares, because that LinkedIn is full of sort of passive cold leads, and you've got to wake people up to who you are and the value that you offer, and your values and how you work with people. So just saying, hey, I mean, my pet hey is, hey, it's Christmas jumper day. You know, who gives a monkeys? Nobody cares that you're in an office where you're all wearing Christmas jumpers, but you will have so many more really interesting insights and stories to tell, things going on in your business, processes that you can share, you know, sort of new things that you're learning or mistakes that you've made and how you've corrected them. So the homepage feed for me is about starting a conversation with people, one that they are questioning themselves, one that they're interested in, maybe one that they've never thought of, and they can get on board and start thinking about things in a different way. So don't broadcast. Don't say, I've got my podcast is out this week. You know, that's not going to engage anybody. It's like Pam says, it will have a very small lifeline on the feed. So don't broadcast. Silly thing.
Okay. Great. All right. Well, let's get one more mistake that we see from Pam, and then we can start moving into tips. But I just want to have a bit of a discussion about those mistakes first before we go on. Pam.
Just adding to what Jill said there, the number of times I've said this about Christmas jumpers, it was such a delight to hear somebody else saying that. But the other one is, and what I bet Jill will nod, we are delighted to announce.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Okay. So also, I think for me, forgetting that this is a networking room. Okay. And you're here to build relationships and to help people to understand who you are and what you do. So, but it's networking. So what people tend to do is just concentrate on putting a post out, and they get quite obsessed with the number of views. Okay. And actually, this is to the detriment of the other things they should be doing, like going out and talking to other people, their target market, building relationships with them. Because there are also people who say views don't matter. Ridiculous. Okay, because a percentage of the people who are seeing your posts will be visiting your profile, will be turning into clients, and 90% of nothing is nothing. Correct? So of course views matter, but it's over obsessing with them to the detriment of all the other things that you should be really thinking about. You could get hundreds of thousands of views because you've said something terrible, really controversial. It's not going to do you any good, is it? So,
well,
yeah.
I think most of the time, no. I think there are times when being controversial, if you're being controversial because you've got a particular positioning, a particular stance that is anti something in your industry, for instance, and you say something controversial, then that's part of your positioning. That's part of you getting that engagement. But if you're just saying something controversial just to get the views and there's no strategy behind it, then that's a different thing, isn't it?
I'm talking about deeply publicly offensive.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So can you imagine the number of people who would wade into an argument, something that positioned you as not a very nice person, that kind of thing. So you could have hundreds of thousands of views, but that's not going to do you any good. So it's not number of views, it's what you're doing with people.
Also, I think you shoot yourself in the foot with that kind of strategy. If you are continually doing things to get that attention, you're going to turn your audience off very, very quickly.
Yes.
So, it's not a long-term strategy that's going to build your business or your account.
Fabulous. Stephen, welcome.
Sincere apologies for joining late. Lovely to meet you all. Quick question. What are your thoughts on humanizing yourself on LinkedIn by posting personal stuff like Facebook or and Instagram, because I try to keep the two separate.
This is a passion of mine, Stephen.
Sorry?
This is a real passion of mine, actually, because if you can't build that trust with somebody, there's no deal. Pure and simple. You've got to build that trust with people. And if you're not sharing a little bit about yourself, then how do you allow people to get to know you? How do you allow people to take that next step with you to discover whether you're the right thing? Now, do people take it too far? Sometimes I feel uncomfortable about the things that I read, because I think, gosh, I wouldn't share that, but I'm not their customers. And the key here is to really know your customers and how far you can go with this. I'm not into thinking this is the professional platform. That's what we do on Facebook or Instagram and political stuff for Twitter. We're dealing with real people and real businesses. And so I have to let you in a little bit. I have to let you know some of the times when I've come out of and moved forward and won and beaten down a path those times when I failed, because those are the kind of failures and journeys that my clients will be on too. And it really resonates more than anything, actually. You'll find those posts get an awful lot of engagement.
Oh, Stephen, we're not hearing you. Did you mute?
No.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Sorry. I wrote a post about a guy that's really sorry.
Stephen, apologies, but you're really breaking up. Can't make out what you're saying. Do you want to pop your question in the chat and then I'll read it out? Thank you. So, if you want to do that, I will do that. While Stephen's doing that, Jess, what's your thoughts on what we've talked about here already?
Yeah, there's a few things that's going around in my head. So one, well, I suppose Jill, when you said getting to know your customers and getting to know them on a really kind of, really understanding them. We did do a live a good few weeks ago now, didn't we, about questions to ask about your target audience. I'll put that in the comments as well. So if you're thinking, okay, I don't know my audience well enough, go back to that live and take some notes from there. We share 6 questions that you can ask. But a couple of other questions I've got. One is when you were talking about building them relationships, what tips maybe have you got on how to do that? How do you build relationships without becoming part of that noise that, spamming people and just entering people's space without them giving consent or anything like that? How can you build them relationships up in a more natural and authentic way?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to hold my hands up. I was thrown off LinkedIn for spamming in my early days because I didn't know how. So I think it's about creating context for your network. So you do that really easily with the content that you create, with supporting the content that other people create. And from that, you've got either some commonalities, some context, something that you can springboard from and pivot from that allows you to maybe direct message them, maybe loved your post, invite them, loved your post, really interesting thought there, you open to connect type invitation. So it doesn't come out of nowhere, which is why we feel outraged with the messages that we get in our inbox, because there's zero connection, there's zero context, and it just makes us feel that we've been sold to, which none of us like. So content is just one way of doing that. What do you think, Pam?
Yeah, I think you've said commenting on their posts because that's what they want you to do. What they don't want you to do is to spam them in the inbox with some sales message, but commenting on their posts, and quite regularly, before you even think about asking them if you can have a chat about business. You have to build up relationships. It's like, you don't, a guy I work with, Ian, always says, you don't go up to a networking event, look at some really attractive individual at the bar, walk up, hand them your business card and say, marry me. You just don't do that. You take them on a date first, you get to know them. And LinkedIn is absolutely no different. So maybe, one of the things I've done is I'll network with people properly. So if I'm chatting to somebody, I'll ask them what makes a really good connection for you or an introduction for you. And then I might send them somebody's profile and say, would this person be a useful introduction? And then make the introduction, just create a group chat and introduce them. And these are ways to build up relationships. Who would not want that in their inbox?
Yeah.
It's all about relationship.
So I've got a question about that, because, whilst I think it's good to I get where you're coming from, but I'm not going to introduce somebody I don't know to somebody else, because that's affecting, that's putting my reputation on the line. If I kind of go, hey, you should speak to so and so, then that implies that I already, know them, trust them, can recommend, them. So what would you do in those situations?
No, I don't think I would introduce somebody and as a lead, but perhaps a strategic introduction. So if it was two people who have the same target market but don't do the same job, but can possibly introduce each other, then you can, or it's the way you word it, just like, this guy just connected with me, and I just thought maybe you two would like to be in each other's network, connect up, maybe.
Okay, so you're not saying it's not a referral, basically.
Yeah, you're not being asked to say, oh, I know this person really, really well, and I trust them, and I think they're wonderful, and I think you should do business with them. It's just about the way you do it, but obviously not. No, you'd have to know somebody well before you said,
absolutely,
I would do business with them.
Yeah. Okay, so you're just basically saying, hey, I recently met this person, thought they might be a useful connection. So there's no implied kind of, there's going to be no comeback. Okay.
Send them something that you think they're going to be very interested in, or invite them to a networking event you're going to, but it's got to be done naturally. You can't. You will know when it's natural and when it's clunky.
Right. Okay. Stephen, just want to see if because I'm hearing little bits of background. Just wondering if your audio is working again now. Do you want to say hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's working now. Great.
So I've got a massive echo. Okay, so my question is, if you're writing regular posts and you're giving free advice, how much do you continue to give before you then engage with somebody and start charging?
This is the question that I probably get answered the most. I don't know about you, Pam. I am a huge giver of all of my content and my strategies, because typically people don't ever join up all the dots and action it. And part of what people need with all of us is the hand holding, the motivation, the keeping the momentum going for them, because we've done that. We know how to do that in business. So I will I'll give away a lot of strategies on the homepage feed. I've got lots of things that people can access that I've created over the years. And what it does is it just continues to build that trust, which is what you want. So Yeah, in terms of industry knowledge, my skills, I give away a lot, but I think that's only one part of the kind of content that you should be sharing anyway. It's, it's a multi-sided thing, content. So yeah, I give it all away. Pam, what about you?
Thank you for that.
I agree. This thing about people just don't join up the dots. And someone who sees one educational post that you've done may not see the next one, and so on. Yeah, they're not going to see them all, and they do need that hand holding. And as Jill said, if you do the same type of post all the time, your audience will just get completely fatigued and stop reading. You have to do a variety of things. And then we've got to remember as well that different people assimilate in different ways. So some people will like videos, some people will like text only, some people will like to see some pictures. So you have to do that variety. And also some people, most people are drawn to those who show that they have a little bit of humor and a little bit of fun side. It's a psychological fact that people are drawn to doing business with people and making friendships with people who give a little bit of way of what psychologists call their free child ego state. So don't take off the corporate hat, basically, and don't be stuffy all the time. Doesn't do you any good.
Okay, so you're talking about doing different kinds of content, right? So, but like, what are, if you were to put those into kind of buckets or containers, like, what would you call those different kinds of content, and how do they serve? Like, the topic of today is how to get clients with LinkedIn. So we talked about some mistakes you make sure you need to avoid doing. It's not just your profile. You've got to be personal and not corporate. Those kinds of things. You got to know your audience. You got to add value. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. But so what are the steps that people need to take in order to actually transition from, well, actually, first question first, apologies, I'm jumping ahead of myself. The first question is, what are the different types of content that people ought to be sharing in order to help them to get clients?
Right. Jill, are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so you need to do some educational stuff, which also positions you as an expert in your field. And you also need to put a little bit of personal stuff in there as well, some personal stories. Mm-hmm. So you can be educational, inspirational. Also, people like to see there's poll posts, and there's survey posts, and there's multi-page document posts, and there's video posts. Come on, Jill, jump in.
Yeah,
what are the others?
Over lockdown, we got really, really busy, but I decided to do some research, and it was all about content. And I looked at all of the content that I could go back to on my homepage feed and that was coming out. And I noticed that there were 5 themes that all content, apart from those stupid Christmas jumper broadcasts, which I wasn't paying attention to. So one was wisdom posts, the knowledge that you have from the work that you do with your clients. The second one was personal posts, so sharing something personal, allowing people to get to know you. The third was engaging posts. What's going on in society, culturally, globally, what's going on in your industry, sharing things about that, sharing your perspective on that. Another one was a spotlight post, so talking about your business whilst not doing a broadcast post and just saying, this is what I sell, but talking about an area of it, like we've tweaked our processes because what we wanted to achieve was this, because we know that our clients are doing this, but actually it was doing the reverse. And so we've learned a huge lesson and we now do this. What are your thoughts? And then making people an offer, which is probably the one that most people miss out on. And it's getting them and almost training your network where there is gold. People forget that their network is just hidden gold. Training your network to take that next little step with you it's about giving them little breadcrumbs of decisions to take, so that you're building that relationship, you're drawing them a little bit closer to you. So those were my 5 that I discovered through that sort of mega bit of research that I did in the lockdowns. So I don't know what your thoughts are on those, Pam, but they work really well for me. And then of course you've got all the different media that you can
Yeah.
use.
And I think as well, you shouldn't be afraid to do some sales posts, you know, where you are actually inviting people to do business with you. It's not a no-no completely, but if your audience is, as Jill says, trained, they're engaged with you, they're following you, they're liking you, they're more likely to then take notice of your sales posts. Because if every single one of them is a sales post, they're just not, they're just going to switch right off. Why should they do business with you if you haven't built a relationship with them? And and then there's all these different ways of delivering these things. But I would say that whatever the content is, whatever style of post it is, try as far as you possibly can to make it conversational. I think that's the one thing you can't really leave out, because if you talk at your audience and don't try at some point to talk with them, they're not going to leave you any comments on your post. And LinkedIn wants conversational posts, and if you don't get any conversation, your post isn't going anywhere. So you should try and include people and talk with them.
Absolutely. And Debbie's agreeing with the whole thing about, you know, she's saying her work is of very personal nature. To be honest, I mean, particularly most service-based businesses, their work does tend to be of a personal nature. Like, even if it's business to business, like, there's still personal, emotional reasons why people are going to want to buy. And so we need to be communicating, you know, around those things, you know, and that relationship building is important. So, I mean, one of the things I'd like to kind of throw in here as well is that, you know, so when I'm looking at a business, and I'm looking at their strategies and their offers and their sales process, like, you know, there needs to be a sales process kind of replicated on LinkedIn. So we've talked about content, and we've talked about, well, we only said don't make a profile the only thing. But, you know, how can people connect the dots? You know, so are you saying that, I mean, you've talked about engaging on people's content, and you can message them when you make it more personal and it's kind of, you know, relevant for them. Well, how does it all fit together?
That's a really good question.
Like, that's, in order to get clients, like, you know, you're not just doing random bits of content. You're not just randomly messaging people. Like, you know, how can you be strategic and build some structure into it? Or are you saying that actually you can't?
I think that's the question that most people are asking, actually, Una, to be fair. And for me, I really feel that when you connect with somebody, it's really important what you do next. I'm holding my hands up, and because we've been so busy and I've had COVID, I'm way behind on this. For anybody that's watching, I think it's really, really important what you do next and how you position yourself. And it's a golden opportunity. So I tend to do voicemails. Brought me in hundreds of thousands of pounds voicemails, voice notes on the mobile. So few people are using the voice notes. It shows up differently on your inbox. It gives people a really clear sense of your personality, who you are. You get a sense of who somebody is more. And I've instantly won some major pieces of work just from using these voice notes. I also like to tag new connections into my posts and ask them for their opinion. You know, great to have my new connections here. I'd love to know your thoughts. So there's some easy strategies where you can start having that connection that the algorithms notice. You know, every time you're messaging people in the inbox, they're going to show, they deem it as a relevant connection. So they're going to show your content to that person. The more they see your content and engage, the more they're going to keep seeing your content and engaging. So I think those first steps of starting to build that relationship and seeing if there's some synergy, and qualifying people through just normal everyday conversations.
You know, Jill said something important there. She said that when she tags her new connections, she asks their opinion. Tagging people willy-nilly in a totally irrelevant way is an absolute no-no. Okay, so if you just put in the whole swathe of tags and people, what you've written doesn't really have anything to do with them or their business, it's so disingenuous, and they're going to think, well, why are you doing this? You're doing this just for views and likes, and no, try and do it in a more genuine way. As Jill has said, talk to them. Don't just put a load of tags in, because people are just going to get annoyed with that and say, why am I tagged in this? But if you ask their opinion, then you're going to help the algorithm. You're going to get conversations going.
So how many, like, would you just do like 3 or 4? Would you do it in the main post, in the comments? Like, what do you think works in terms of that kind of strategy?
I do it in the comments, so
first you're not getting all those notifications and untagging yourself.
First comment, and people can remove the mention, so it's not there forever. Especially if you've got a really engaging post, they're going to get notified. So if it's a really big one, people might say to me, oh, I'm getting lots of notifications. So you can just go in and remove those 3 little dots at the top of the post. There's all sorts of a whole menu there that you can control what you see and what you want to see. So
yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure who it is, because for some reason the system's not showing me, but someone's just saying, love the tip about voice notes. I'm going to commit to using them even more. I love using voice notes. For a start, it's faster. Anything that speeds things up, I'm a fan of. If it's going to save me time.
Careful.
And it's just so personal,
I did hear a story about a guy who was just sending a voice note to all his brand new connections. And he was saying, oh, hey,
oh, no.
I really look forward to finding out more about you. And he was kind of catching up in the middle of the night doing this, or late at night. Yeah. And so there was this woman who there was a few women who kind of blocked him, and he sort of that was it. He put a post on LinkedIn saying, what am I doing wrong? And people were saying, well, don't you think you're coming across a little bit creepy?
Right.
So use them in context and say something,
and use them at the right time. Don't send an audio message at booty call time. That's a bit of a
exactly. Yeah.
Be careful.
Yep, I think that's very wise. Yeah, I think
I do think.
Big time. Go on, Steve.
Sorry, I was going to say, I do think there's something to be said about voice notes. I mean, you leave me voice notes all the time, and you can't sense urgency in a text or a message, where you can hear the intonation in somebody's voice and the feeling and the emotion, and it does personalize that interaction, which is huge.
Absolutely. And actually for you, it's probably even more important, Stephen, because your business is all about your voice. Because, Jill and Pam, if you don't know, Stephen does cold calling and appointment setting and things like that. So yeah, it's, your voice is important. I think also, any services where people are going to be dealing with you, the person, then I don't know, I think there's just something about voice and about video that really helps to make a deeper connection. And I know often for me, when I talk to people like the first time I've met them, and they often have watched numerous videos before, so they feel like they know me. It was my first time meeting them, and they're like acting like I really know you.
You've given them that opportunity to do that through taking the time to do a voice note and doing something different.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Well, we need to wrap things up. We've all got to get on with the rest of it. I know time has flown, hasn't it, Pam? I can see you going, what, already?
I have a quick question, if that's all right. I think it might be relevant to people watching, because we've talked about so much, tips and do this, do that, and all these things you can do. But what if people are watching thinking, I haven't got extra time in the day to be spending on LinkedIn. How do how do I fit this in? How much time should I be spending on it? I've got endless other things I should be doing. How do I know to prioritize this? So what would you say to them people that are watching thinking, I feel overwhelmed now, it's the start of the day and I feel like I've got 100 things added on my to-do list? What tips have you got on how they can maybe
Mm,
ease into it, or you know, you can see what I'm saying?
yeah. And I felt exactly that quite a few years ago, totally overwhelmed with everything that was going on in my business. And so one day I went and made myself a cuppa. I went into the office and I thought, what are the main things that I need to be doing? And there's 6 things that I discovered that I do, and it's on my website, jillchitty.co.uk. We call it, Jessica, you might already know this, we call it the LinkedIn morning cuppa routine. So it's those 6 things, and it's about creating a habit. You know, we will all have time for a cuppa. Why not make that a really useful cuppa and do those 6 things? It's going across that top menu bar. Are you posting on the homepage feed? Are you responding to people on the homepage feed? Are you accepting invitations? Are you reaching out to key people that you've engaged with already? Are you responding to messages? Are you on your notifications, seeing what's going on there? So there's 6 things, and I lay it all out if anybody wants to go and have a look at that. But listen, you're never going to get results on LinkedIn if you don't have time to put into it. You get out of all of these platforms what you put in. And actually, just half an hour over a cup of tea or coffee will really set you up, because the algorithms are scoring you on whatever you do. And if you're not going on there consistently and engaging, then you're going to lose. And there's going to be other people that are willing to take that cuppa and a laptop or a phone and just spend time on the platform.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yeah.
Pam, what about you? And I know we've kind of talked about this earlier, but you've got a great
Well,
phrase that you call your algorithmic connection, which I just love
yeah.
that phrase.
Well, you know,
But how do you make that work with the time?
well, okay, so I've had this a lot, as I'm sure Jill has, you know, how do I make time for this? And very often these are people who spend a lot of time going out networking, and maybe they go to one of those breakfast clubs that's every single week, and it takes a big chunk, takes quite a few hours out, really, getting there, spending the time at the meeting, coming back, having the one-to-ones. And I'm like, well, how many hours a week do you spend on this? And it's with the same 15 to 20 people every week. And here is a networking room with 750 million people in it, and you don't have time. And they go, oh, yeah. Like, so, and I just think, look, you can't have a business and say, I don't have time to market it. And I think time blocking is key as well. And as Jill says, that morning cuppa, perfect time. But also the writing, just keep a notebook, keep ideas of what you're going to post about and what you're going to do. Maybe just time block an hour or so in a week and get everything written and ready, so that every morning you're not going, oh, and having to think about what to write. And that is also a big help.
Yeah, absolutely. Big fan of really structuring your time. Like I work with my clients to create what we call a weekly flow framework, where they're looking to spend obviously as much of their time being in flow, but doing it in a way where it's not just what you do and how much time you spend on it, it's when you do it and putting the appropriate things together, because they take different energies, right? We have the kind of creative time, but then the actually the engagement time, that's a different kind of energy as well. So I tend to separate out my creative time from the engagement time, and like you, Jill, I have to admit I've not been as good as that recently. But yeah, I know it does make a difference when we do that. I think the key thing is that we need to be strategic. We need to have plans. I'm a big, anyone who's been watching the show, I'm a big fan of 90-day planning. We seem to have lost Stephen. We're just about done anyway, but we've got to, we're coming up to the second quarter. So, if you don't have a plan for this quarter, put a plan together. And if you want to get clients on LinkedIn, then you need to put aside some time and be strategic about, well, what are you going to have on your profile? What are you going to be posting about? Having the balance of different kinds of posts, that Jill and Pam have shared, making sure that we are making sure that we're creating that path for people. Okay. So, it's, you want to have that compelling offer of what's the first step that you want people to take. And then what's the next step and what's the next step, and have that actually outlined, and then utilize LinkedIn as a way to get people to take that first step. And then you're going to figure out, are they a good fit or not? So these things need to be put together, and you've got to put some time into understanding, well, how do you stand out from the competition? Okay, what is your market dominating position? All these things, they work together. There's no one silver bullet. Okay, if you don't have the other foundations in place, you can do loads of work on LinkedIn, but you're probably still not going to convert many people. You'll end up having lots of conversations, but not many clients. So everything has to work together, and it's about making sure that you sit down and put the pieces of the puzzle together. And you've got plenty of people here today who can help you with different aspects of that. So please do feel free to reach out to whoever you most resonate with, or whoever's going to give you the kind of help that you need. All our contact details are, just connect to us, send us a message. And if you're here, if you've watched this far, then just make sure you do something. Take something from today and do that, right?
The opportunities are out there, aren't they? They
absolutely.
absolutely
And welcome, Taz. We're just wrapping up, though. You have to go back and watch from the beginning. So absolutely. So fantastic. I think did I share tip 8? They're all there in the comments anyway, so you can, if you're watching this on the replay, you can always speed up the playback speed as well, by the way. And not that we talk very, very slowly. We tend to be quite fast, I think. But you can do that to speed up getting through and getting to the bits that are most relevant for you. Jill and Pam, thank you so much for joining us here today and sharing your wonderful words of wisdom. It's been great to meet you, Jill, and to see you again, Pam. And thank you again, Jess and Stephen, for being co-hosts. And we look forward to seeing you this time next week. Bye for now.